Hey, welcome. We're talking about NASCAR at Chicago. If you're looking for IndyCar coverage, that is tomorrow, meaning Monday. We will have a full in-depth video about the IndyCar race, the hybrid debut at Mid-Ohio. But I have to talk about this NASCAR race in Chicago because I didn't talk about the NASCAR race and the craziness that happened there in Nashville. And I feel like I missed a huge opportunity there. So to put a little context into this, I have just gotten off of a stream, or I'm still on a stream, I should say, literally as I am recording this, for the members of the DL 500 Club. And if you haven't joined that, my goodness, you have to, because I just streamed both the IndyCar race, or streamed during both the IndyCar race and the NASCAR race, watching the races along with my viewers. Now, of course, I didn't show the actual race footage, but if you had a TV provider or Peacock or whatever, you could watch it along with me. And boy, oh boy, did I not expect a 1:30 commitment to start the IndyCar live stream to last until, I'm looking at the clock right now, 9:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But that was the NASCAR Cup Series second attempt at the Chicago Street Course. And my goodness, do we have a lot to discuss. So I felt bad about that Nashville race and the fact that I didn't make a video about it, because I realized if I send more than 10 tweets about a NASCAR race, I should talk about it. And I suppose my very, very brief thoughts on Nashville is that sometimes it's okay for a race to end under the caution flag. And in this case, well, it kind of goes back to my old adage of noon. But it's a lot more subtle than that, and obviously there are a lot more factors that go into Chicago and that race happening in the way that it does than just the start time. But my goodness, obviously the IndyCar race was before the NASCAR race on NBC. I don't know how much that had to do with how NASCAR or when NASCAR started the race. In fact, I think the concerts had more to do with that than NBC did. I think otherwise IndyCar would have been on USA Network, and NASCAR would have, if NASCAR had started at noon. It was all about the concerts. I want to say some positive things about NASCAR first. I applaud NASCAR for how they handled the rain and the rain racing in this particular race, at least to begin with. I thought it was great that they gave the teams a choice to whether to start on slicks or dries. They did not hold their hand to a certain extent, although they did let them have an exploratory lap to decide whether or not they wanted to use one tire or the other. And what was cool about that was that the teams both chose slicks versus rain tires. Some of them chose slicks. Now, less of them chose slicks, but most of the teams chose rain tires. But there was still a split. There was still strategy. The race, to a certain extent, at least early on, played out naturally. And I thought, the racing early on in the race, when Shane Van Gisbergen caught the back of the field, in fact, when the whole field caught the back of the field, the front of the field caught the back of the field, I should say, and it was drizzling, and you saw that sequence where Shane made the move. I couldn't, there were people running into each other. I couldn't believe how close that was. It was, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Certainly it was one of those things where there were guys running into each other, and Shane made that incredible pass. And, you looked at that and you thought, well, Shane Van Gisbergen is going to win this race again. There's no doubt in my mind. And then he got wrecked, of course. We got to talk about the first stage first before we talk about Shane Van Gisbergen getting crashed. I was a bit confused as to why SVG, as to why the race, when it started to rain and SVG was leading, they made a decision to keep running under the caution flag when most of the field was on slick tires. And I really questioned that decision. I questioned it quite a bit, because I thought, there was some talk about safety in the pit lane and XYZ, and trying to not make the pit crews decide the outcome of the stage points, which I think is ridiculous, because the pit crews are part of the team, right? it would make sense to me that the pit crews would determine, who finishes where in the top 10. I don't think it necessarily matters if you have hot pit stops to determine who wins stage points. That's my opinion. I know it's crazy, right? But the fact that they made a decision to run most of the cars around at like 20 miles an hour on slick tires in torrential rain conditions, I scratched my head about that one a bit. I didn't really understand it very much, I have to say. So, and of course, that also led into the fact that it was then a torrential rain, and they finally got the race restarted, and then Shane Van Gisbergen got taken out by one of the Stewart-Haas cars. I think I remember it was the 10 car. I can't even remember who's in the 10 car. It's been so long. Chat is still here. Remind me who is in the 10 car. I believe. Oh no, it was Chase Briscoe. That's why. For some reason I was wanting to say Eric Almirola, and I'm an idiot. So it was Chase Briscoe spinning out and taking out Shane Van Gisbergen, and all of the racing nerds said, "Oh, I don't need to watch the Chicago street race anymore because my senpai is out." But here's the thing that I really don't understand. Last year at the Chicago street race, when it rained, it was a single file restart. And they decided this year, when it was rain, Super01 in the chat says, Cheese Brisket took out the Wendy's car. Interesting. When it rained last year in Chicago, the race, if I'm remembering this correctly, all of the race's restarts took place single file. So why was a restart in torrential rain done in double file? I just, that racked my brain, and I don't understand it, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And then it rained so hard that it was red flag conditions. And it was red flag conditions for an hour and 40 minutes, which broke me. That weather delay was terrible. And then we found out that NASCAR had a set time that they were going to end the race, and they were going to, when the timer ran out, give them 2 laps to go, and then they were going to get the white flag, and then they were going to get the checker, and that was 8:20 local time, 9:20 Eastern Standard Time. So then it became the question of, is this like a Spa 2021 Formula One thing where we don't know when the race is going to end? We don't know if it's going to run only under the yellow. Then it rained again, and then they had to cover up the cars, and then they had to go dry the track again. It was one of those things that was just like, it was an agonizing, painful watch as on television. And in fact, I said during the first stage caution, I said this to my viewing audience who was watching the race live with me. I said, wait a second, why? NASCAR is the most popular racing series in this country. And yet, they can get away with putting out race cars running on slick tires in the rain under the caution, and they can get away with doing that. I just cannot believe that they can put a product out there like they do sometimes, but they do, and they get away with it. And then they decided, because they were under a time delay, we're still going to throw the stage cautions for the second stage, which I thought was ridiculous. I thought NASCAR had a fine system last year where they didn't throw stage cautions on the road courses. I thought the Indy race last year was fantastic, and yet that was the race that they decided was the straw that broke the camel's back. This is too boring. We can't do this anymore. Ridiculous. The only good thing about that was that Joey Hand won the stage because a couple of drivers, including Christopher Bell, who had dominated the race, had to pit for slicks, or decided to pit for slicks. So Joey Hand was leading the race, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there thinking, we've got another Shane Van Gisbergen situation here. Joey Hand, who has won the ALMS championship, who has had class wins at Sebring and Le Mans and Daytona and all of the important sports car races. He's raced in DTM. He continues to race in IMSA as a factory driver for Ford in their Mustang program. Joey Hand is legit, and yet Joey Hand, for many NASCAR fans, they had no idea who he was, which I thought is funny. It's very similar to the Shane Van Gisbergen situation last year. But then when the race got restarted, he got a good restart, but it wasn't quite enough. And Alex Bowman finally made the pass on him. Another Stewart-Haas car crashed. The Stewart-Haas team was a total joke. They kept crashing. They should have all been black flagged as far as I'm concerned. Get them off the racetrack. But it looked like it was 2 turns, and that was all Joey Hand needed to win the race. That was not true. The race got back underway. And I'll give Alex Bowman all of the credit in the world, okay? Because lesser drivers would have absolutely sent Joey Hand, because Bowman had many, many opportunities. He had a pace advantage on Joey Hand. He could have gotten around him. He could have run into him. He didn't. So credit to Alex Bowman for racing Joey Hand cleanly. I thought that was incredible sportsmanship on his part, incredible respect for his fellow competitors. I cannot sing a high enough praise of him. But then there was Tyler Reddick, who was on the dry weather tires, and he was flying on the last 2 laps. In fact, coming to the white flag, I was screaming to the live chat, Tyler Reddick is going to win this race. And then Tyler Reddick choked, hitting the wall, hurting the car, and Alex Bowman became the second driver to win a NASCAR Cup Series race on the streets of Chicago. Now, there's some question marks about the future of Chicago in NASCAR and what will happen, and it seems like there always are questions about NASCAR and Chicago. There's also talk about a Formula One race. They've tried to file patents, all sorts of fun stuff. So I guess this will continue to be an interesting story for years to come, whether or not NASCAR and Chicago can come to terms. And, oh, yeah, they also tested an electric car this weekend, an electric car that has leaked several times at this point. But what is that, and what is the future of that? Surely NASCAR is about to announce a series. They wouldn't have shown that car off if they weren't about to announce a series of electric vehicles. And we'll see where that goes. Speaking of electric, we're going to be talking about IndyCar's hybrid race tomorrow, Monday, at tomorrow afternoon. Can you tell I've been on the air for about 8 hours? Good Lord. Well, if you haven't joined the DL 500 Club and you got this far, you could have watched me record this video live, watch all the bloopers. It was fun. It was fun to watch the race with all of my viewers, and it was fun to discuss it. I hope you guys are having a good discussion in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and I will see you in the next video.